Welcome to Season 3, Episode 6 of the Me and ADHD podcast. In this episode, I'll be having a conversation about ADHD and the work environment. And joining me for this conversation is ADHD careers coach, Thrive Neurodiversity coaching partner, and public speaker, Adam Broomfield-Strawn. Welcome, Adam.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
How are we doing today? Is it a good day today? Is it sunny where you are?
It is absolutely sunny in South London, where I am. I'm gazing out the window, and yeah, it's absolutely beautiful on a Friday. Couldn't ask
made
for
you
more.
get stuck inside talking to me instead.
Absolutely not a problem at all. Pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk about these subjects.
True, I find it fascinating. I find it very interesting to open up and speak about it all, and it's just which is weird for me because beforehand, I didn't really speak. I'm not a conversationist. I'm not that way inclined. I'm not like an open person until I started this journey. But there we go.
You're the exact opposite of me. People are like, does this dude ever shut up? No.
So, for you then, when were you diagnosed? Are you still waiting? Are you still waiting on a waiting list to be diagnosed?
Yeah. Still waiting. Realised at the age of 50. Well, I can't remember where it began, but something ticked a box at the age of 50 that made me go, oh, that sounds very familiar, and I can't, to this day, I still can't pinpoint when that moment was. But then I went down the route of looking into ADHD further,
Yeah,
and it just ticked so many it answered so many questions. It was just mind-blowing. It really was. And I've specifically continued looking into and studying ADHD more over the past 2.5 years, and like a lot of us, I've got a million different books, and just the more that I read, the more it all makes sense. Reading, listening to podcasts, educating myself, but yeah, still waiting on a diagnosis. And I went down the right to choose pathway as advised by many people, and it's still taken 2.5 years, which surprises a lot of people. They're like, should take 5, 6, 7 months, and it's like, not in London.
yeah. It's I think it's one of these things when you do the right to choose. There's so many people going down that route.
Yep.
And there's only a handful of clinics that signed up for the right to choose.
Yep.
They've got a lot of people on their list, and it's just growing and growing all the time.
Yep. And if you are a popular one, I know in the Panorama program, that just the infamous Panorama ADHD. I mean, that was just, don't get me started. What an absolute joke that was. I nearly swore, but I don't know if we can swear on this.
Oh, you go for it.
Yeah, it was an absolute fucking joke. But obviously ADHD 360 were mentioned on there, and a lot of people obviously went, oh, hang on a minute. And then when they go down the right to choose pathway, they see that name that they have heard of that apparently gives diagnoses quickly to apparently anyone, whether you're actually ADHD or not, which we know categorically not true. And then that increases their waiting times as well. So yeah.
That was a tough watch. I watched that before, probably about 3 or 4 weeks, I think, before my assessment. And I was, no, this is not good. And I went private. And I went to the clinic and I said, I'm really worried because I've watched the Panorama documentary, and they were like, heads in their hands, basically. This is like, that was not good. That does not do any clinics any favors, and it's so one-sided. And and they kind of put me at rest, and I spent like 4 hours with them, and it was really good. But yeah, when you get Panorama, who is, I guess, like a national institution when it comes to news reporting and things like that, and
Yeah.
you would have thought they would have done the both sides of the story, or the best side, not just one side to downplay everything.
Yeah, it did make me wonder if there was a hidden agenda, behind that. Like, why would you send an investigative journalist who clearly didn't, I mean, that couldn't have done the journalist, I can't remember his name, but that couldn't have done him any favors the amount of abuse he must have got from anyone with ADHD. Now, I actually feel sorry for him, because when you're in that position, it's like, hey, do you want to do this job? Chances are he was told, this is the way that we're going to go. He may have actually provided much more of a balanced view of things, but then obviously things get edited, so they could have just edited everything, or told him, no, you can't say that, you have to say this. But it did make me think, is there a hidden agenda behind it? Because obviously it was very much playing into, oh, everyone's got ADHD apparently, and if you want to get hold of some really strong drugs really quickly, then you just have to do this. I mean, the reality is, if you want to get hold of drugs for recreational purposes, paying a lot of money to get a private assessment for ADHD, it doesn't make sense. You would just take that money and spend it on fucking drugs, which are very easy to get hold of. It's just, if you want to get hold of an ADHD drugs for people without ADHD, they don't do anything. They don't. There are plenty of drugs out there that are a lot cheaper, a lot easier to get hold of. No one is going to get a private assessment for ADHD because they want the drugs. It's just, it doesn't make sense. But a lot of people would believe it because it's the media narrative, which does definitely have a negative bias towards ADHD. And I do not know why. I think it's just, it's the latest. I mean, it's not the latest trend. It's a trend that's, their negative narrative has continued for an incredibly long time. But it seems to be one that does flare a lot of people, which obviously, that's what sells papers and gets clicks, isn't it? If you talk about something factually that makes people go, oh, I feel sorry for those people now, that doesn't. That doesn't. It doesn't give them what they want, which is why you never see the papers talking about refugees and then the like of, these people are, escaping war and genocide and this, that. It's not that. It's always, oh, these people are coming over here to steal your jobs and get your benefits and live in a swanky hotel. And it's like, but that's not true. But yeah, compassion doesn't sell papers, does it?
This is very true. Very true. So we digress, and this is very ADHD like, isn't it?
We went off on a tangent. What a surprise!
You know what? This has happened so many times in past podcasts that I've had to change the title of the podcast because we just haven't stuck to the actual original title. So how do you? So when you recognise your ADHD, when you kind of worked out, okay, this is, I'm pretty convinced this is it. I've done all this research and everything, and ticking all these boxes, and my life now is kind of like making sense now.
Yeah.
How was that helpful to you? I mean, what did that do for you? That information.
It's a double-edged sword, because on one side you get this massive wave of regret about things that you've done in the past and bitterness the fact that it wasn't picked up earlier, and you do really you mourn a life that could have been had you known earlier. I could have, that relationship could have worked. I could have stuck at that well-paid job, and you do get all of these. But it definitely has some benefits. It really does, and I'm a massive advocate for, if you think you've got ADHD, start studying it, and never ever ever stop. If you buy a book on ADHD and you never read it, okay, books don't work for you. Go for audiobooks, go for podcasts or whatever, because the more that you learn about how you operate and why you operate that way, it brings something that ADHD people desperately need, which is self-compassion.
Yeah.
We constantly live, not all of us, but a lot of us constantly live with a feeling of, I'm a failure, I'm a fuck up, I can't get anything right, I can't stick with a job, I can't, there are all of these negative feelings that we walk around with. And the world has told us, you're too loud, you're too much, whatever, from a very, very young age. And then we walk around in our 24/7 brain that doesn't switch off, we were speaking about earlier. And it is important to not excuse your behavior in a sense of, oh, well, it's not my fault, I've got ADHD, because we can't just carry on doing the negative things that we do, speaking out of line, this, that, and the other, and just saying, oh, it's my ADHD. But it does bring a lot of self-compassion where you can go, right, I can see why I did that thing, or why I was that way, or what. And then knowing that, you can then go, okay, how do I minimize the negatives of my ADHD behavior, my ADHD brain, and how can I tap into the potentials? Because that is the other side of it. You learn ADHD brains are very good at this type of thing, and it is a generalization, but very often we're creative, we might be artistic, we're outside of the box thinkers. We very often we can be very good in an emergency. Not all of us. I could not be a paramedic because people would die, but specific ADHD types definitely can be. It does bring a lot of self-compassion and reasoning behind why things have been the way that they are now, and if you utilize that knowledge, it can help you create a better way of living moving forwards. But it is down to us to actually do that. We can't just go, oh, I've got ADHD, and then do nothing.
Yeah,
you've got to do something with it.
Like you say, we especially I mean, I don't know, most of the people I've spoken to are late diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
But from the late diagnosed point of view, you've grown up generally being told you're not good enough. You've got all the negative, feelings and thoughts and things like that going around in your head. So I can't see anyone getting a diagnosis or getting that information, it's ADHD and this is the reason for your life, and them going, yeah, it's because of my ADHD, and then use that as an excuse. No. Our psyche, our mood, our self-worth is in the toilet. It's not going to just now pop out and go, I am better than everyone and I've got ADHD and nothing matters anymore because I've got ADHD. No. We're still down there. We're still down there trying to get out, trying to claw out our way out. And having that information is going to help us to try and claw our way out. But it takes time, and I can't see anyone just going, just changing overnight and going, yeah, that's my ADHD. I don't care. I just nicked a car. My ADHD. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
No.
There are. I mean, I would say you're right. You're right there. The majority the majority of people with ADHD would want to then go, right, okay, now I've got that diagnosis and that knowledge. How can I stop making those mistakes? There will be a certain percentage of people that are simply assholes.
Oh yeah,
There
there's
will be,
always.
because there are plenty of people out there without ADHD who do shitty things.
Yeah.
So there will be some people that get the diagnosis and go, okay, I've got an excuse now, and then just carry on. But yeah, the vast majority of people with ADHD, it's because they don't want. I know there's this myth that everybody wants a label and everyone's got ADHD, and you know, it. We don't want labels. We want fucking answers, and and
Yes.
and that diagnosis is something that you have a trained psychologist, somebody trained in the medical psychology field saying, yes, your brain works differently to a neurotypical brain, which means you have these specific challenges. That's why you find these things harder than you. That's why your brain has to work 10 times harder than a neurotypical brain to do the things that a neurotypical brain can do. And it's like, it's no wonder we're all addicted to fucking sleep. Like, every ADHD person is like, oh my god, I just want to sleep. And it's like, yeah, can you imagine how much fuel a car uses? If you get a Mini and you get a Ferrari and they both drive 100 miles and the Ferrari uses 10 times the amount of fuel because the engine is just constantly revving a lot higher, that is our brain, isn't it? Our
Yeah.
brain is having to work 10 times harder than a neurotypical brain just to get through the day.
Yeah.
It's no
Yeah.
wonder we're knackered all the time.
It's like, as I said to people before, if it's like you're going in for a meeting, it's an all day meeting with your
Oh,
area manager, and you've got all day. You've got to prove your worth to the company, otherwise you're going to get fired. Basically, you got to prove your worth all day, non-stop. Imagine how you feel coming out of that. At the end of the day, you are going to be beaten. You're going to be, you're going to be feeling so bad and so tired and so exhausted and thinking you're going to lose your job because you've just failed at everything
yep.
because you were so tired and you didn't answer things the right way and things like that. That's our everyday. That is,
Yep.
we do that every day just to, get up and fit in and be normal.
Yeah. Oh.
And then come back, and then that is just an everyday. We do it every single day just to try
Yeah.
to get by.
And if you are in a job, and this is the thing, a lot of late diagnosed ADHDers, they're late diagnosed because they have a child that is getting a diagnosis, and they're hearing the questions and going, oh, hang on a minute, that sounds very familiar, because we're well aware of the genetic link. It's it
Yeah.
is the most prevalent. There is a genetic link, and if you have both parents with ADHD, and let's face it, ADHD people struggle to get on with other people, so when they find another person with ADHD, the chances of them having a relationship and marrying and breeding another person with ADHD, it's exponential. This is probably why we've seen so many young people over the years with ADHD, because it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? If you're an outsider and you struggle to get on with people, but you fall in love incredibly quickly, which is an ADHD thing, love bombing and all of that. When you meet somebody else with ADHD, all of a sudden it's explosive. The chances of you marrying and having another child, and then so their children are being diagnosed and they're going, this sounds very familiar, and then they're getting diagnosed and they're thinking, right, this is why. For me to sit, I used to be in the corporate world, and to sit through all day meetings without being able to stim, because you didn't know about stimming. You would just be sitting there sort of, doing this. Somebody in a meeting doing this, tapping. I look at that now and go, you're stimming.
Yeah.
That's a fidget toy for you. And then you see people doodling on the notepad. And you're like, I'm looking at all these things and not diagnosing people, but I'm fucking recognizing things. And it's just, and you struggle, you switch off, you don't pay attention, you don't take notes. And then you go, oh my God, oh shit, people are answering questions and taking notes and taking this seriously while your brain is daydreaming because you're just like, I don't want to fucking be here. And I lived that for 10 years. God, it was awful.
Yeah, that's not good. Boredom is a huge problem for us.
That's our kryptonite, isn't it? That's our kryptonite.
The worst thing is when you talk to people is like, yeah, you can relate to the boredom, but it's not the same things. Because you have your own things that you find enjoyable for whatever reason. You find something enjoyable, which is going to be different to mine.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, it's still the boredom thing. Yeah. Although I find editing photos really cathartic for me and relaxing and all that. It's going to be mind-numbing for maybe yourself or someone else, because it's like, no, I just don't want it. This is so bad. But I'm like, oh, it's lovely.
Oh no, I can totally get that. I had some homework to do for a course I did recently, and I went right down PowerPoint rabbit hole. Just, oh God, I love me a PowerPoint. Like, I've got the timer and I'm reading the text in my head and I'm clicking and going, right, I need that to transition for that. That is, no, I'm totally with you there. The boredom thing, and I think this is what people don't get. People will go, yeah, but everybody gets bored in all day meetings. And it's like, right, the boredom is like, for you, a 10 kilogram dumbbell is like a bit heavy, right? But for us, that 10 kilogram dumbbell is 100 kilograms. Like, that boredom that a neurotypical brain is able to tolerate, that is physically painful for us. Like, it you have no idea. That boredom isn't just boredom. It's I can't even think of an analogy to describe it. It's just, think of the worst pain. Like, if boredom was a little pinprick to you, that boredom to us is having your hand shoved on a red hot stove for 5 or 10 minutes. It's unfucking bearable. But you have to sit there with your hand on the stove, pretending that you're paying attention when inside you're just burning up. And
I think that's half the problem. It's a behavioral. It shows a behavioral difference. So so people relate in the wrong way. Well, everyone does this, and everyone gets bored, and everyone can be a little bit forgetful, and everyone. No, it's about where it's highlighted and shown as ADHD because it's been going on since before you were 12 years old. Yeah. And the intensity and the frequency is off the chart, and it's above the normal kind of what you would expect, and also how it affects your life.
Oh yeah, because it's not that everybody gets bored and everybody gets distracted and whatever. It's like, yeah, everybody does, but it's not like all the time or almost all the time. It's not that prevalent. It's like, yeah, I get tired and grumpy and hungry like occasionally, but if a pregnant woman says, oh, I'm tired and grumpy and hungry because I'm pregnant, I go, oh well, I get tired and hungry and grumpy, so everybody's pregnant, aren't they? It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. It is a permanent fucking thing. Your occasional is my all the fucking time. Like, just
Yeah. It's like I was I was thinking to myself the other day. It's like you can have a paper cut, right? You have a little paper cut,
mm,
and then you can have your arm is chopped off, right? It's still a cut. So the person who's got a paper cut is not. It shouldn't be going to you. Well, yeah, we're still a cut. Everyone gets cuts. No,
yeah,
I've had my arm chopped off. That's a
yeah,
bigger cut than your cut,
yeah,
and that's going to affect my life a lot more than your paper cut.
yeah.
It is different.
Or they've got
It's
one paper cut, but you've got. I mean, somebody could have one bee sting, but if somebody else has 1,000 bee stings,
yeah,
they're going to hospital.
yeah.
And it's like, no, 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 you get a bee sting, we get 1,000 bee stings.
I appreciate that my analogy was a bit poor.
Oh no, we've gone down the route of finding different analogies for the same thing to show that we understand what the other one is saying. But no, you're absolutely right. It's just, yeah, your paper cut does not compare to my bloody chainsaw to the bollocks or something. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah. Well, everyone gets a cut. Everyone gets a graze.
it's like,
Yeah. So when you going back to the topic, so when it comes to your work environment, how did before you sort of discovered the ADHD and what it was all meaning and everything, how was your work environment then? How was that affecting you?
it, do you know what? It's only really, I would say, it's only been in the last 2 or so years that my work environment has dramatically changed, that I've actually noticed it to the point where I've gone, hang on a minute. And I think it was definitely the change of environment that must have triggered this thought of, hang on a minute, I might have ADHD, because I used to work in the corporate environment for a long time. So I used to work in international hair care for about 12 years. I was driving around all day long, visiting salons. So I was effectively working on my own. I was on my own all day long. I could listen to the radio, podcasts, audio books. And apart from the fact that I didn't actually like the job, I had a lot of autonomy and freedom and time to think. And I was very creative and writing speeches, and I used to write articles for a blog called Salon Serious and all this sort of stuff. When I moved away from a driving job, which effectively what that was, when I came to London, I did lots of driving jobs, very similar, working on my own. When I moved into the school environment, and all of a sudden I'm being told you have to go to the same place every day, work the same hours every day, in four walls, somebody else is telling me when I can have a break and when I can have lunch and how long that lunch lasts for. And then there is constant noise. I mean, schools, you take that internal narrative that doesn't shut up for 24/7, you amplify that by 1 or 200 students, you're in the perfect storm. Add that to multiple instructions given verbally, which change very, very frequently. Then you add on to that the fact that the pay is just, this is the worst pay job I've ever been in. And it isn't, it's absolutely disgusting, the living wage that teaching assistants are given. And that's a completely different topic, but you add all of these things and it's unbelievable, because all of my ADHD challenges, they're just magnified. And then if you're working with, I mean, we hate, as ADHD people, We hate things like people who walk slowly, people who mumble, people who take half an hour to get out an answer, even though that's exactly what we do. We hate all of those things. But then when you work, if you're working in a school one-to-one, especially if it's a special needs school, it's very likely those are the people that you will be working with all day long.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. It's just that is how they are, and that's absolutely fine. But if those are triggers for you as an ADHD person, working with those people all day long, you do need the patience of a saint, and you will be masking all day long, and you will be triggered all day long. But obviously, because it's just how how pupils are and how the environment is, you can't act on that. So you are masking, you're being triggered, you're being challenged, and by the time you finish work at 3:15, 4 o'clock, whatever it is, you've got nothing left. You're absolutely burnt out.
Yeah. The environment has, be it work or outside or family or social, wherever the environment is, plays a big role in it, how your own ADHD will present.
Yeah.
She can make a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. If you are, I mean, I'm a very firm believer, there's no science behind it, but to me it makes perfect sense. If you are in the right job that interests you, and the environment is the right environment for you, and this is something that I spend a lot of time looking at on the ADHD career course that I developed. If you are in the right environment and you are doing something in a field that interests you, and it is the way that you like to work, because that could be, you could be working with your mind, you could be working with your hands, you could be working with people. If you get those three things, it's the who, what, where, when, and why. So who do you like working with? You've got to work with the right people. Where do you like working? What type of environment do you like to be in? What do you like actually doing? What are those things that naturally interest you? And why do you want to do that job? If you get all of those, and environment is an integral factor, you probably don't need ADHD medication. You can go through life not even knowing you're ADHD because you're in the right environment, doing the right thing with the right people. The counter to that, if you're in the wrong environment, doing the wrong job, it's all the medication in the world is not going to help, because you need to be in the right environment, doing the right thing. It's just, and I know that from bitter experience. It's absolute hell.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I mean, with that now knowing, and now you've done research and things like that, are you able to put things into practice to help and support yourself and to navigate those areas?
Yeah, that is the thing. I have recognized that. I've recognized that doing a regular TA job for me it isn't the best fit. So what I've done is I've cut back to 3 days a week. I do get universal credit because living on you can't live on a teaching assistant wage unless you have a full-time working partner who brings in a decent salary. You literally can't. There are teaching assistants that take second jobs and use food banks. It's absolutely prevalent. The money, you can't live on it. So I'm very fortunate to get universal credit. I've now gone back to working Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday and Friday, I can then focus on actually working on and promoting and coaching the ADHD career coaching course. I've completed the Thrive Neurodiversity in the Workplace course, so I can focus on that as well. And having that sense of direction and purpose, and those 2 days out of the school environment have been incredibly beneficial to my mental health. And I'm currently in discussions with the headmaster as well, because I see the need for training of neurodivergency among staff, because all of the education and training around neurodivergency is focused on the pupils, which is great. There are elements that need to change, but we need to understand and ensure the working environment is neurodivergent friendly, because the neurodivergent staff, especially in schools, they're not being adequately supported. The environment is not being adjusted for them. So I'm looking at introducing the Thrive Neurodiversity in the Workplace course to schools, because if you help the neurodivergent staff, those adjustments for the neurodivergent staff, a lot of them will naturally help the neurodivergent students. If they see that people are allowed to wear noise cancelling headphones and it becomes more common, they're going to feel less conscious about that. They're more likely to wear the headphones, therefore they're able to do their work better. They currently won't do that because they're not seeing anybody else wearing noise cancelling headphones.
Yeah.
They have to see, if the teacher's wearing them, then their schoolmates are less likely to take the mickey out of them, because the teacher's going to be on their side and go, no, that's not what we do. But they need to see that neurodivergence is accepted and accommodated, and their neurodivergent skills are being highlighted rather than just what they can't do. We need to focus on what they can do. So that's one area that I'm looking at, and again, that sense of purpose is very beneficial for my mental health. And then I'm also looking at training to be an ADHD coach, so that there is an ADHD coach in the school, because from what I see, if we get ADHD coaches in schools, or people who are qualified as an ADHD coach, and if it's something that the school budget could, cover, brilliant, because that's an investment in the future. Because if we have children with ADHD being coached on their challenges and their skills and how best to survive, when they leave school, they're less likely to go down the route of destructive behavior, drink, drugs, stealing, speeding in cars, reckless behavior, reckless sexual behavior. If we can get them at a young age, then when they enter society and they know what their skills are, what their challenges are, and how they can adapt to them, they're going to get a job that is more suited to them. They're going to be much more able to have healthy relationships with other people. They're going to be much less trouble to society, because the estimates say that at least 50% of people in prisons have undiagnosed ADHD, and that makes perfect sense. But if we coach them from a young age at school, the cost of that coaching, which the government could cover, we're gonna see that tenfold. That's going to be covered, because we're not going to have people entering society causing trouble,
Yeah.
and being a strain on the benefit system and the police system and the NHS. So I want to look at that as well.
That's a good thing to look at. I mean, kids kids going to school, they just want to fit in. Okay. And I know that's probably the wrong thing to do, because you should be able to just be yourself. But when you're at school and you're struggling in whatever way, you just want to fit in. You want to kind of be invisible, but not invisible at the same time, you know? You just want to be, yeah, accepted for, and that's it. And so when you've got teachers or teaching staff showing and doing the different things and talking about neurodivergence and all that, it brings it all out, it highlights it. And if you can support them at that age, start teach them things at that age all the way through. Because like when you get home, a child comes home, our son comes home, he doesn't want to know anything about learning. Okay, so get them when they're at school and it's about learning, they're in that kind of that environment for learning, because when they get home they're going to be exhausted. And to go through all that, they get used to it and talk about it, because they don't talk about it at the moment at school. So get them used to talking about it and living it and improving things. When they do come out of school, they're going to have a whole bag of tricks following them and helping them along the way to navigate everything. Because at the moment they're coming out going, I don't know what's going on. Why am I doing this? I just want to do this, so I'm going to do it, and I don't know what's going on. And that's just the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, their brain is constantly chasing dopamine, but they don't know that.
Yeah,
they don't know. I mean, when I was young and I was at school, I went through this spell of shoplifting, and I didn't know why, because I don't even know why I started it, but I went for a long spell of shoplifting, and I was very good at it, and but I didn't know why I was doing it. All I knew was it gave me a rush, and it was, I can look back now and go, oh, that makes sense. But if kids are going out and they're drinking and smoking and doing drugs and being promiscuous and, causing trouble, but they don't know why they're doing that, then there's an issue there, isn't there? We need to go, well, look, this is the way that your brain works. What are the things that you can do that give you that dopamine? And it's like boxing, football, joining an acting class and getting that rush of performing because everyone's petrified of speaking in front of people. Or, I'm an advocate for stand-up comedy. ADHD people have just an incredible sense of humor and a very creative mind, which is why so many comedians have ADHD. And it's like, imagine being at school and having a comedy class at school, or a comedy club at school, where the kids can take that creative mind and just take the piss out of each other and be comedic and be creative and get that, because the dopamine rush, I loved stand-up, and I am going to go back to it at some point, because the rush that you get from stand-up is brilliant, and it hurts. It's free and it hurts no one.
Yeah.
But kids need to know that. They need to know your brain works this way. You can go down this route, which is trouble, or you can go down these options, which are going to benefit you. They're going to make you a better conversationalist, a better public speaker, give you confidence. You've got to hold yourself better, which in itself is going to work better in the work environment, isn't it? If a young person comes in and they're able to think on the spot, which is something that you need to do in job interviews or in work. Well, if they do comedy at a young age, they're going to learn that. They're going to have that ability. And you need to stand on stage with a sense of confidence and look confident, but they're going to learn that in comedy. And you need to be able to project your voice and get your point across in a coherent fashion, but they're going to learn that in comedy. But
it can make a huge difference, that environment, and a lot of the things, those adjustments that could be put in are really small things, insignificant, don't cost anything. Maybe a little bit of organizing, whatever. It can be done, but it's just not done. Which is frustrating.
I mean, small things like movement breaks. If you've got a lesson that's 45 minutes long, for a kid with ADHD, if they're not able to stim in class, if they're not able to stim or stand up and walk around or doodle, because if they're doodling, they're listening. They're just, that excess energy is going somewhere. If they're not allowed to do that, and I see it all the time, stop doodling, pay attention. And I'm like, no, they're doodling so they can pay attention.
Yeah.
Like, just, but even things like movement breaks, it was heartbreaking. I was working in a school and there was a young lad that had an explosive temper, which is classically ADHD. But he had learned through working with a specialist, he had learned how to recognize and regulate that. So when he knew he was going to explode and punch a wall or tear the place up, he had to remove himself from the situation. So he knew what he had to do, and that was brilliant. And I praised him for that on a frequent basis. But I remember seeing he was trying to get out of the building so he could calm down and regulate, and 2 senior members of staff were blocking his path and not letting him do what he needed to do to regulate. And I couldn't do anything. Couldn't do anything. You can't step into these senior members of staff and go, just get out of his fucking way and let him go and regulate. And all I could think was, that's a power trip.
Yeah.
Like, that's an ego thing of, I'm in charge, not you, so I'm not going to let you go. Because there was no benefit of not letting that child go and regulate and calm down and come back. No benefit at all. So in that moment, it was 2 senior members of staff letting their ego get in the way of letting a child do what they needed to do. And it's like, that shouldn't happen. No, that shouldn't happen.
No, it shouldn't at all. And it's, I know people say, school and whatever don't have the money and resources and all that, but
it doesn't take money a lot of the time.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes it's just your attitude towards the kids and neurodivergency and all the rest. It's your attitude towards it. If you don't care, I don't believe in it, whatever it is, that's a problem. Okay, not money. That's a problem.
Mm.
So when you've got an ADHD kid, you've got an autistic kid, and everything out there is saying they need movement breaks, or they need to have ear defenders on. They need to have certain things, otherwise this is going to happen and this could happen, and you refuse to let it happen because that's not what we do. Okay. That's your problem. You're creating the issue here.
This whole system of, that's not the way that we do things. And it's like, well, do you know what? In the 1940s and 50s, we used to let people drive around pissed out of their heads, not wearing seatbelts. Like to a certain point, we never used to wear seatbelts. To a certain point, we used to let people drive around in their cars with kids in the back, smoking, chain smoking. Like, just because that's the way that we've always done things doesn't mean we should continue to do those things. We used to take neurodivergent people and, lock them up in a facility and let the public come and stare at them like there was some fucking zoo exhibit or something. I remember I was working in a school, and it was the same school that the incident happened. But I had a couple of pupils that they couldn't work in the class because the class was so noisy and disruptive. And they would go into the corridor and they'd be with me, and they'd sit on the windowsill and they'd do their work. Now, my mind says, You want to do the work, you're doing the work. I don't give a fuck where you do that work. You found somewhere that works for you, you're doing the work. Brilliant. And then another member of staff comes along and says, you can't do your work there, get back in the classroom. And I'm like, right, so rather than them being here with me, not causing any trouble doing the work, you want to send them back into the classroom where they're going to kick off, and then they're going to be tearing around the school in 5 minutes, causing trouble because they're pissed off. 5 minutes later,
do the work.
5 minutes later, that's exactly what happened. So reasonable adjustments and the costs of it. There is this fear that adjustments are going to cost time and money that schools or businesses don't have, but that's actually not the case, is it?
Yeah.
It's not the case. A reasonable adjustment can literally be the child needs to step out of the class for 5 minutes and walk up and down the corridor and then come back into the class.
Yeah.
And it's like, would let them do that. That costs nothing. But if we're saying, no, you've got to wait 10 minutes until the end of the class to have a break, it's like, well, why are we? Because then that child is going to get aggravated, and the challenge of being in the class is going to be magnified, and then the possibility of them kicking off and being disruptive is greatly increased because you've got to wait until such and such a time before you can have a break. And it's like, they're not skiving. Just let them leave the classroom. I had two young girls who were very disruptive in the corridor of a school that I worked with, and they were doing their work, sat on the windowsill, and I could see them, and I was in the doorway of the class, and I could see them, and I could see the class. Everything was great. They were doing their work, and I could see what they were doing. They could ask me for help if they needed it, which they didn't. They were absolutely fine doing the work, helping each other, which was great. And then a member of staff came along and just said, no, they're not allowed to do the work there. So they sent them back into the classroom. And because the classroom was disruptive and full of boys who were, being disruptive and, they weren't able to work in that environment, but because this member of staff had said, you've got to go back into the classroom and work in there, you can't work here, within 5 minutes, they're tearing around the school and I have to go out after them, leaving the teacher without a TA. And it was that member of staff who refused to accept that these girls had to work in a slightly different environment. It was the girls did not take me away from the class. They would have got told off for it. They would have got into trouble for it. But it wasn't their fault. They shouldn't have got into trouble.
Yeah.
It wasn't their fault. It was the member of staff that refused to see what was clear as hell. They're there and they're working and they're not being disruptive. Leave them alone. Like, don't poke the fucking tiger. But we do. We come along and we poke the tiger with a stick that says, this is how it's always done.
Yeah.
And we do that with neurodivergent kids. We poke them. We poke them with the stick that the system has created that is inflexible. And it's like, why have we got this stick that is totally inflexible? Why isn't that stick made out of bamboo that says, all right, well, let's be a little bit flexible? And the system needs to change. We need that flexibility in the system, because if the system doesn't become flexible, it's just going to keep on breaking. Like in a storm, the tree that survives is the one that's able to bend with the wind.
Yeah.
The tree that breaks is the one that's absolutely rigid and refuses to move. And it's like, yeah, bamboo doesn't. Bamboo can survive a storm, but your regular tree can't, because it's too rigid. Yeah. And that's the system at the moment. It is so rigid that the branches are just breaking off.
What do you think that does to students or people, at work, when it comes to speaking out about their own, ADHD or neurodivergent sort of needs and supports?
It's just it. I mean, that's a great question, because this is something that we do really, really need to look at, because what happens is, and I've seen this and I saw this recently, if a neurodivergent child says that they're struggling with something, if they're lucky, the teacher will say, okay, what is it you don't understand? And the reason that some teachers are remembered for decades after a person leaves school is because of the way that they listen to a pupil, which is, that's one of the greatest things that any school environment can do. Actually, active fucking listening. Talk less, listen more.
Yeah.
But there was a student said to a teacher that they said, oh, this is really confusing. And I was in this class, and the student said, this is really confusing. And instead of listening to the student and going, okay, what are you having a bit of trouble with here? The teachers just turned around and said, oh, it's not confusing, it's really simple. And that happens all the time. That happens all the time. A neurodivergent child, neurodivergent pupil says, I'm struggling, which is effectively saying, I need help with this. And their neurodivergent challenge and need is just, it's batted away. It's like, doesn't matter. It's negated. And what happens there is, if we don't listen to neurodivergent pupils, neurodivergent children, and recognize what their skills are, absolutely, but recognize what their challenges are. If we just negate or don't even recognize their challenges and just negate them when they do ask for help, which for a lot of neurodivergent pupils is a real challenge, because we don't want to make a fuss and we have RSD and anxiety and all this sort of stuff. For us to speak up and advocate for ourselves as an adult is hard enough. As a child, it's much harder, because we don't want to stand out if we think that everybody else is able to cope. But what then happens is, those young children have learned from a young age not to speak up because it will just be ignored, not to speak up because somebody's going to basically effectively say you're thick, by saying, oh, it's not difficult, it's really simple, because that then reinforces the message, you're not able to do something simple, therefore, oh, you must be stupid. You must be stupid because the teacher says this is simple, but you can't do it. And then as they grow older, as an adult, whether they recognize their neurodivergence or not, they're not going to advocate for themselves. Yeah. They're going to struggle with work, as I did for 36 years. They're going to struggle with work, and they're going to mask, and they're going to burn out. They're going to suffer anxiety, depression, panic attacks. Or they're going to take work that is very, very easy for them, but does not utilize their skills or their actual abilities. They're not going to reach their potential, because they're just going to go, well, I'll take a really easy job, and they'll end up doing a job that doesn't interest them, doesn't challenge them, doesn't use their skills and abilities, and then they'll carry on throughout life feeling exactly the same way, feeling like a failure, as I have for many years. Yeah. Because they know they're capable of doing a lot more, but they don't know what they should be doing or how to even get there. And that's something that happens to a lot of late diagnosed ADHDers. They've gone through life doing jobs that are way, way, way below their ability, and then they end up feeling like a failure And then if you try and change careers to something that you are much more able to do, now you recognize that you have ADHD and what your skills are and what you need to get by, trying to change the trajectory of your career, the older you get, the harder that is, because you need qualifications that you probably don't have. You need finances that you probably don't have. You need time and energy that you probably don't have. And it's just, and there's no, just what you need to change careers. I mean, it's possible because I'm doing it now, but it is bloody hard work.
Yeah.
It's very hard work, and that can be depressing as well, because once you know, hang on a minute, like for me, it's like I love helping people, I love coaching people, I love speaking. I need autonomy. I need quiet and time to think to myself. I need to work for myself a certain amount of time by myself. How do you go from working 5 days a week in a low paid job to working for yourself at home? Like, the gap between those two, the challenges that creates.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
And at the same time carrying around that bag of, shame of always being told and always thinking you're not good enough. It's never going to happen. Why are you doing this in the first place?
Yeah. But this is why schools need dedicated ADHD coaches. Like, this is why schools need education on neurodivergence, and we need to shift the narrative away from, we need to recognize what the challenges are, absolutely, because if somebody is diabetic but they don't know they're diabetic, they need to know these are the foods that are going to cause you trouble and these are the foods that are going to help you. We need to do exactly the same with neurodivergent people. With ADHD people especially, we need to look at, these are your challenges, this is what you can do to address those challenges, but these are your skills. Let's look at you and what you're good at, because if we can take those skills, the things that they're able to do, the things that they might be their superpower, and put that with the things that they're interested in a way that they like to work, and get all of that, if they then enter the workforce going, these are the jobs that I'd be really good at, that I would be interested in, their self-worth goes up, their challenges go down, the benefit to society goes up, because they're doing a job that is suitable for them, and they're earning money, and they're not causing trouble, they're not hopping from one job to another, and doing the self-coping mechanisms of drink and drugs and whatever. But we need to get them in at a young age.
I was having a conversation the other day on a previous podcast, like for the people who don't want to give their kids a label, for the people who don't want to kind of be open about, this could be ADHD or autism or whatever it could be. Let's just keep it as this is right and this is wrong, and that is it. If you go and speak to a whole bunch of late diagnosed ADHDers, autistics, and ask them, what was their school environment like? What was their relationships like? What was their family life like? What was their jobs before they were diagnosed? What was it all like for you? And I guarantee you, when you hear the majority of them answer, you will change your mind. You will get your kid diagnosed. You will give extra help. You would understand that not opening up your mind and realizing that there isn't one way. You are causing so much damage.
And it's just this whole, I get why people say, I don't want to give my kid a label.
They will be labeled. They will be labeled.
They're going to be labelled either way, but do you want them labelled lazy and fucking stupid and distractible, or do you want them labelled ADHD? Do you want them labelled lazy and fucking stupid, or do you want them labelled dyslexic? You know, do you want to be labelled lazy and fucking knackered and overweight all the time, or do you want to be labelled diabetic? It's like, labels aren't bad things. They're not bad things. If you open your cupboard door in the kitchen and every packet and every tin has no label, so you don't know what the fuck's inside that tin, no, you need to know what's inside that fucking tin. We need to know what is inside this. It's not it's only a negative thing if your association with that label is negative. Because if the label of ADHD is a negative thing to you, then it's like, okay, so you're saying that you don't appreciate people like Justin Timberlake or Robin Williams or all the other creative people. You know, if your view of autism is a negative one, then it's like, okay, so people like Albert Einstein and, you know, God knows how many other incredible inventors, is like, so you're saying that Charles Darwin was definitely bloody neurodivergent. If he wasn't ADHD or autistic, he was definitely ADHD. You know, having that creative mind, but the tenacity to stick to, I'm going to make this fucking light bulb work, sort of thing. You know, that wasn't Darwin, was it? But who was that? Who did the light bulb? I know who I mean.
It's gone out of my head now since you asked that.
Oh my God, it wasn't Darwin. But this is the thing. If we have a negative label for something that has incredible benefits to society, then the label isn't the problem. The problem is your association with that label. And if anything, that highlights even more the desperate need of society to change how we perceive and how we think about neurodivergence. And that comes back to the school.
Yeah.
We need to raise a generation of neurodivergent pupils with a generation of neurodiversity advocates in teaching positions. We need to raise up a new generation that looks at neurodivergence the way that we're starting to look at LGBTQ plus, the way that we definitely have looked at, you know, people of color and all these things. All of these people that were previously thought of in a negative light and treated unfairly because of their perceived difference. If we raise a generation of pupils in an environment that embraces neurodivergence and says, these are your skills and abilities and all the great things that you can bring and all the great things that you can do, and we're going to help you with your challenges and change the environment, then they're going to enter the workforce, and then the workforce is going to change. The work environment is going to change. The whole narrative. You know, we should have a society within the next 5-10 years that goes, oh, cool, you've got ADHD. We can use you in our business. Oh, you're autistic. We need you. We should have businesses going, who do we need? What neurodivergence can we use? Not in a way of these people are then viewed as, you know, a means to make a profit, but in a way that they're appreciated for what they can do, rather than, you know, negated because of what they can't do. It's only around 30% of autistic people that are in full-time employment.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, but you've got organizations like Microsoft and Google and JP Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs and, NASA, seeing the benefit of autistic people and their abilities, and specifically setting up programs to attract and retain those people, and they're seeing productivity go through the roof, they're seeing creativity go through the roof, they're seeing their retention rates go through the roof.
Yeah.
But why are these companies recognizing the abilities of neurodivergent people while everybody else is going, autistic people, ADHD people, no, they're too much trouble, just don't hire them, don't bother?
Nothing makes sense to me. Nothing makes sense. The whole thing doesn't make any sense in regarding society's view, and the employer's view and everything, because it's not as if the science isn't there. Okay, this is not something that we've thought up. This is not something that, we've just created and got together and go, hey, we think like this, so let's call ourselves ADHDs. No, this has been in the medical journals or described in the medical journals for, over 200 years. It's been extensively sort of looked at and researched. The proof is there. The brain scans are there to see the difference. There's more proof around ADHD than it is over a lot of other mental disorders and physical disorders. There's more proof that it exists, and this is what it is, and this is a reason.
But it wasn't even widely recognized, in the medical journals. It wasn't even widely recognized until the year 2000.
Yeah, I mean, over here in UK,
crazy.
2000 is recognised for a child diagnosis, and 2008 for an adult. I think it was something like 2015 or 2006, something like that. That it was recognised that you could have ADHD and autism at the same time.
But how long does it take for... I mean, we know how long it takes for medical fact to become public normal, Between scientists realising that cigarettes cause cancer and warnings going onto cigarette packets, 75 years. Because it just takes... It takes so long to shift society's viewpoints, and the problem is society's viewpoints is largely fed by the media narrative, and we know that behind the media narrative there is a business narrative, and if there is money to be made from any kind of negative narrative or positive narrative, if there's money to be made, the changes needed to rectify whatever the issue is, it's going to take a long time.
Yeah, it is.
It's going to take a real long time. But yeah, we know the medical evidence is there. It's just ridiculous that we're still in this place where ADHD and autism are, if you're autistic, you're either rubbish and you can't do anything, or you're an absolute fucking genius, like something out of Rain Man.
Yeah.
And if you're ADHD, you're bouncing off the walls. You imagine Bart Simpson with the pan on his head, banging it with a wooden spoon, walking around the house going, I am the best, I am the best. That's what you imagine. You don't imagine any of the incredible people with ADHD that people have heard of that have contributed great things. Needs to change. Desperately needs to change.
I mean, at the moment over here, I mean, absolutely, so many things need to change, but there's still things that businesses are meant to do reasonable adjustment wise.
Oh, yeah.
So are there legal? Have they got legal responsibilities to make it, these reasonable adjustments?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's clear. It's clear in the Employment Act. I brought it up earlier where we got the Equality Act 2010 says it's a duty to employers to make reasonable adjustments for their disabled staff, including job applicants and workers. The core principle behind the duty is to make reasonable adjustments to remove or reduce any substantial disadvantage that a disabled person faces compared to non-disabled people in the workplace. And it's literally, it is your duty as an employer to ensure that if somebody with a disability, and neurodivergence is classed as a disability, whether they are diagnosed or not, whether they disclose their neurodivergency or not, it's your duty that if they say, this is really challenging for me, could we do this? And very often it's not. I mean, for me, it was wearing noise cancelling headphones in the workplace, and my employer said, yeah, absolutely, if that's what you need, please don't be listening to Spotify while you're working, but we trust that you won't be. That was absolutely fine. But if employers refuse to make reasonable adjustments, now, I mean, a reasonable adjustment, if your business is on the top floor of a listed building with narrow stairs, there's no lift, and somebody says, oh, well, I have problem with stairs, you need to fit a lift or, put in a stair lift or something or other. But legally that there's no way that business can do that because it wouldn't be cost effective, or it's a listed building, they're simply not allowed to do it. Well, that's not a reasonable adjustment. But if the employer was able to say, well, okay, you can do this job from home as long as we put certain rules in place and we can check and we keep it. If you can do your job from home rather than coming here, then yeah, that's absolutely fine. That's a reasonable adjustment. But they have to make reasonable adjustments, not unreasonable. We're not saying you have to allow me, you have to pay me the same wage, but I only have to work 1 or 2 days a week. But if they don't, and this is the thing, this is the need, this is the reason that businesses really do need to know what are reasonable adjustments.
Yeah.
And why it is so important, because there are some businesses that refuse to make reasonable adjustments, were taken to court, lost the court case, and if you are neurodivergent, and that is the reason for the court case, because you feel that you were not listened to and reasonable adjustments weren't made, you are much more likely to win that court case. And businesses, and this isn't about scaring businesses, it's just like, look, you just need a bit of education.
Yeah.
To make sure that if somebody says this, you know what you should be doing. Because if you don't, and you're taken to court, it could cost you a lot of money. And the cost of that education isn't that much. But what it can save in potential court costs is massive. But also, when you know a neurodivergence skills and abilities and what they're really good at, if you utilize those skills and abilities, they're able to, the productivity goes up, profits go up, retention goes up, that member of staff's quality of life in and out of work goes up. It's literally everybody benefits from a business knowing what reasonable adjustments are and what a neurodivergent person's challenges and strengths are.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah. It's almost like a lot of employers, not everyone, but a lot of employers, they want to employ people, but they don't want to invest in people. They want people to come in ready-made Okay, you've got the job, go off and do it. That's it, kind of thing. They don't want to put the effort in to help support that member of staff to, help them with their performance and go further in their career or anything like that. They don't want to have that time. They just want to, there you go, you're employed, go do your job, don't talk to me.
Possibly, yeah. A lot of the time, I think you're definitely right there. I think a lot of the time, it's fear of the unknown. You know, you hear the word neurodivergent because you don't understand what it is. Your natural thought is probably one that is negative, because all you ever see in the newspapers and on the news is negativity about neurodivergence. And so there is their natural thought is not a positive one, it's a negative one. And then they're thinking, I don't know, God, like how much work's going to be involved, how expensive is this going to be? And realistically, we all want an easy life. Like, we're all stressed, we're all burnt out, we're all just trying to make our way through life and make our lives easier. And it's understandable that employers will just go, it's just easier to not employ neurodivergent people. If they look at the companies that are employing neurodivergent people and utilizing their skills and strengths and making the adjustments and accommodations needed, they would then go, oh, hang on a minute. I mean, if I was a business owner, I would be looking at these people and going, I would be looking at these companies utilizing neurodivergent people and going, well, they're successful businesses and they're not stupid. So why are they doing this? There must be a benefit to their business. So if they're doing it, like, I should be doing it. If an athlete sees another athlete doing something that is getting them a gold medal, that athlete's going to look and go, what are you doing? What are you doing and why are you doing it? Because you're getting the medal and I want a medal.
Yeah.
Monkey see, monkey do. And this is what businesses should be doing. But without the education and the knowledge of why these businesses are doing these things, they're just resorting to the norm of, I see neurodivergency this way, that's a negative way, it's too much trouble, let's just employ someone who's not neurodivergent. The thing is, even if they're actively avoiding from hiring neurodivergent people, and all you've got to do that is just make sure that the application process is incredibly wordy with a lot of forms and difficult for your average person, because if it's difficult for the average person, it's going to be fucking impossible for somebody with dyslexia or ADHD, isn't it? Let's be honest. But they're trying to make their life easier.
I think what's going to happen, and I've said this a few times before, I think, that all the changes that come in, I think it will come in and things will change.
Oh,
but I think,
yes.
I think we will miss out, but it'll be the next generation that will get the benefits. But
what is gonna happen, and businesses don't realize this. Now, we're seeing AI growing at an incredible rate.
Yeah.
We're seeing AI and technology grow at an incredible rate. Now, the future is very neurodivergent friendly. The future is absolutely dependent on neurodivergent individuals, because when you get neurodivergent individuals, creative outside of the box thinkers, ADHD people, and people who are able to recognize patterns faster than anybody else and hyper focus on attention to detail more than anybody else, neurodivergent people and the way our brains are wired are going to be so necessary for businesses moving forward. If a business is not looking at the future and going, okay, but why do we need these people? What they're going to end up with is just, they're not going to keep up, because the neurotypical brain is not where the future of business is going. Now, we are seeing people like Google, Microsoft, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, other businesses. We are seeing some businesses forward thinking, looking at where the future's happening and going, okay, we need to get on board with this now. If businesses don't get on board with neurodivergency in the workplace and how we can utilize the way that our brains are wired, that they're not going to have a business in the future. They're going to get left behind. A lot of people that are actively avoiding neurodivergent workers, they're going to get a shock because the future is neurodivergent 100%.
They can't come soon enough. It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has. We've gone off on many tangents.
We have. I mean,
Me more than you.
There's so many questions that I didn't ask, but personally, I need to go have some lunch. But yeah, no, it's been a great conversation. It's been great having you on. And I think it'll be interesting to see like the future and how quickly it all happens and how it will change. And
yeah,
I think there's like we said, there's a lot of things that can just be easily done to help people and make a massive difference and impact on people's lives, be it at school, be it in the workplace. But we're all still on that journey. There's still a way to go, but things are looking more positive now than they were before, which is a good thing. And it just goes to show that people are starting to listen. But anyway, guys, thank you for listening. If any people are going to be listening to the podcast, I hope they will be. Thanks for listening. Thank you for coming on, Adam. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure. Yeah.
As always, guys, be good, be kind, and remember, you're not alone. Thank you.